we need to get past those extraordinary stories, and it needs to start being ordinary that people from communities of color can start a business just like anybody else. And so that's our long-term goal, and that's the work that we are most focused on now, is how can we fit into the ecosystems that already exist and make it just that little bit easier, so that the next person who wants to start, if it's a distillery, if it's a barbershop, if it's a restaurant, whatever it is, that next person won't end up sitting in a chair like this telling that story of how they were working those 22-hour days, damaging their health, etc., just to get this thing off the ground. Hi, my name is Chris Montana. I'm the founder of Denord Social Spirits in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My wife and I founded Denord in 2013, and I had always wanted to do my own thing. I wasn't sure what it was going to be. I actually thought it was going to be a brewery, but the distillery was a way to bring together my passion for the science of the work with my wife's interest in bridging an urban-rural divide, because we were able to use corn from her family farm and literally bring it into the city. Well, before doing this, my path is pretty windy. I've done a number of things, from working in fast food to being an attorney. I was a congressional aide for a little while. Immediately before this, I was working as a lawyer, and while I was starting the distillery, I was working during the day as Lawyer Chris, and then I'd come into this room and work at night as Distiller Chris, and often not make it home in between. I always talk about the beginning of Denord as business and fast forward, and it's not something that I would necessarily recommend for people. It's worked out for us. I had the idea to start the distillery in about February of 2013, and by August I had a lease on this place. And that's fast. I was finishing up law school. We found out we were pregnant, we had a new baby coming, and I probably spent more time working on my business plan for the distillery than I did practicing for the bar. I did pass the bar, but there was some scary moments right towards the end when I realized I probably had my priorities in the wrong place. But and part of the reason why we knew it had to be business and fast forward is because there weren't any micro distilleries in the city, and we were broke. We don't come from money. We didn't have the dough to go out and do the kind of marketing that most places would go out and do. And so the only way that we had a fighting chance is that we could get maybe some press, because we were one of the first ones out of the gate. I think there's a value to being broke. I think that it changes your perspective. And when we started this thing, there were no illusions of, well, we're just gonna hire all the people to do all the work, and what's gonna be fun is the sexy part of having a distillery. It's like, no, you're gonna be the janitor, you're gonna be the bookkeeper, you're gonna be in here with fermented corn on you. You're doing all of it. And while that was stressful and took a lot of energy, it also gave me a perspective of this business that now when we bring people into the business, I know exactly how hard all of their jobs are. This is where you could say where the magic happens, but to me, it's magic until you know how it works. And after you know how it works, it's science. So this is a still we call the Frankenstill. We call it the Frankenstill because this is the third configuration of it. It originally was just a mixing tank that we welded some things on and turned it into a still. And I have a love-hate relationship with the Frankenstill, but all of our gin is made on the Frankenstill. Our gin is a macerated gin. Most gins aren't made that way. But by macerated, I mean everything goes into the pot. We cook it, we actually distill this gin over almost a week. And when it's distilling, we're gonna get the spirit coming up that column. And when it hits this piece over here, this is called a condenser, and we're running cool water through this, and it takes that alcohol vapor and it condenses it back down into a liquid. And then the liquid is gonna come out right over here. Once the gin has come off of this pot, it really just needs to be proofed down. And then it can go into a bottle and it can show up at your house as gin. The only other step that happens here has nothing to do with the pot. It's that gin, when it comes off the still, doesn't taste like gin. It needs about 3 months. So it's not an aged product, but it's a rested product. But after about 3 months, the flavors line up where they're going to be. And then our people will taste it and say, yep, that tastes like our gin, or we need to blend it with another batch. I'm probably the least relevant person in this company now because, you know, we have people like Maria and Dan who are making sure that the production is moving. We have, you know, Jen doing communications. We have Christine doing marketing and sales, Elle Rhodes doing sales, Daniel Victory out in New Orleans. We have this amazing team of people. And our process is about bringing that team together and assuming that all of them are smart, capable human beings who all have something to contribute. And that kind of collaboration, I think, leads us down some paths that maybe some other businesses wouldn't go down, but it's been very successful for us. Getting funding for Denord was difficult. And in a sense, we never really got it. When I was first shopping our business plan around to banks, we couldn't get any interest. And at the time I just assumed that had something to do with being a rookie business owner or whatever, but it simply wasn't happening. The only group of people that I got interested in this was a community development organization in the area called Seward Redesign. And they were willing to loan us $60,000 to start the distillery. And to put that in perspective, the next cheapest distillery that was being opened at the time was well over $500,000. And we had 60. And that's what we had to start this whole thing off. And I think that beginning being undercapitalized really affected our trajectory. And we had a plan to open up a restaurant. We put a lot of work into that. We had partners lined up. It was going to open in March of 2020. And on March 14th of 2020, the staff came to me and said that they didn't feel safe.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you about our nation's unprecedented response to the coronavirus outbreak that started in China and is now spreading throughout the world. Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic.
So in March of 2020, we shut down our cocktail room, which was a majority of our income, our cocktail room, and it has never opened again. In May of 2020, George Floyd was murdered about a mile from here. And the officers, the police station that they worked out of is on the same block that we're on right now. And so the protests of 2020 and the summer of 2020 were centered right in this neighborhood. And a few days into those protests, it became clear to us that Denord was probably not going to survive without being hit by some of the arsonists that were in the crowd. And so we told the staff to stay away, and we were going to hope for the best. And I got a text Friday morning, I suppose, at 2 a.m. saying that the place was, that the alarms were off and that there were fires here. And there's a lot of wrinkles to how we interacted in 2020. And the first is that while I had asked the staff to not be here because it really wasn't safe, Maria and I were out giving out bottles of water and hand sanitizer to the protesters because we're still in the middle of a pandemic and we got tear gas for that. There were rubber bullets getting shot around. We saw people. We were in the crowds where they were shooting rubber bullets in the crowd. It simply was not safe to be here. And so we said, all right, the staff should not be here. They didn't listen and they came back and they put up signs. And now we have some signs that are a little different, but they took our boxes and wrote on it, Black-owned business. And our facility is split between a warehouse and the space that we're in here. And this space has a lot of windows. Not a single one of them was broken. Probably one of the only places within a several block radius that didn't have broken out windows is the building we're in right now. And the only thing I can imagine that caused that was the fact that they came back, put themselves at risk to let people know, hey, this is a Black-owned business. We didn't do that on the warehouse. And the one window over there and a door was broken. People got access in there and we had moved all of our equipment over there thinking it was safer. And we were wrong. So all of our inventory, all of our equipment was all in that room and fires were set in that room. And we ended up losing a lot of stuff, but thankfully nobody was hurt. Probably one of the most difficult things I've done in ever was knowing that this business I'd put that energy into was on fire and not being able to do anything about it. that was difficult. We shed a lot of tears that day. Also that day, we had people show up with shovels and with brooms, people who were coming by to see how we were doing. And we had it cleaned up that day because this was part of the community, and the community came out for us. And I'll never forget that. That's a debt that I'm never going to be able to repay. We have a lot going on in 2023. We have some opportunities in front of us. We have a fantastic partnership with Delta Airlines that has worked great for us and has put us in a lot of places that we wouldn't otherwise be. We're finding there's a lot of interest around the country, not just for our brand, but for Black-owned brands in general. And we like to support not just what we are doing, but what other people are doing as well. And so we're a part of that and are benefiting from that. We've never owned any property. And as much as I talk about on the foundation side, how we want to work on that for other people, we've never done that for ourselves. And so we are working on building our distillery that we will actually own. And that's very exciting. And we already have the property for it, and we'll be breaking ground on that later on this year. So there's a lot coming for Denord. And perhaps what makes me the most excited about it is, like I've always said, it's a company that makes a luxury. Right? Nobody needs to have this vodka or any vodka or a gin or a whiskey. But we get to do something a little bit different within this company. Because if people are going to buy that vodka anyway, and we can be the ones to step into that place, then we also have an opportunity to have an impact in communities that actually is needed. And that doesn't have to just be in Minnesota, and it shouldn't be. It should be everywhere that we are in any substantial way. So we're excited about the things people will see, which is our bottles showing up in new places, but we're also excited about the things people probably won't see, where we're working behind the scenes to make there be more Chris Montanas, but hopefully better spoken and with a little bit of an easier path.